Hey everyone, I'm Gevin.
And I'm Dave.
And welcome to episode 19 of Lowlights.
On this week's episode, Gevin and I start with just a few updates about the world of sports, and then we get right into the interviews. We talk to Daron K. Roberts, former NFL coach and best-selling author, about what it was like to get waitlisted at Harvard Law School 4 times before he finally got in.
At the point, I thought my life was over. It's very interesting because, I think at some point when you're young, you really believe in linear life plans.
Yes.
And sort of this kind of chain of causality, if A then B and B then C. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the first, vivid reminder to me that a lot of what was going to happen in my life was going to be unplanned.
Writing after graduation to every single NFL team, yes, every NFL team, to try to get an internship after law school.
But then if there's any coach that has a Texas connection, I'm also going to send a letter to them. And I just went through that process day by day.
Yeah.
Populated the spreadsheet, and then I said, okay, on Monday, that's my AFC North day. And I'm going to send these letters out and go.
What it was like to sleep in Arrowhead Stadium as a young coach.
It was tough. I also slept at Arrowhead, to be honest with you, because I didn't have health insurance. So I'm like, hey, I need to be as close as I can to the team doctors in case anything goes down.
And how he sets micro goals for himself every day to achieve his big goals.
I just found that what helps to build momentum for really big, scary goals is converting that goal into these manageable daily wins and celebrating like hell when you hit them and keep going to the next day. And eventually you look up and you're like, oh wow, I made some progress.
After we talk to Daron, we get into a second interview with legendary NFL player and one of our favorite former Lowlights guests, Chris Carr, where Gevin talks to him about what it's like to try to make a roster in training camp and hang on to your job.
People have different motives during training camps and different goals, right? If you're a veteran, you're trying to get ready for the season, if you're established, hey, whereas other veterans, they might be still fighting for their spot on the team, whereas if you're undrafted or you're a later round draft pick, you're really trying to show that you belong.
So without further ado, let's get into this week's show. All right, Gevin. So you can see I'm smiling. And I think you know why that is. I have not had a chance to say anything about my Red Sox in a while, and it is time. That time is over. I feel like, look, I'm not saying people need to text me an apology or call me and say that they were sorry. I wouldn't be mad about it if they did, but you may remember a couple months ago, I was a little forlorn about the production of my Red Sox, but I maintained the faith and said, I really think that this team is good. I don't understand why people are writing them off in a 162 game season. Season's long. This is a good team. And here we are. The Red Sox have been one of the best teams in baseball over the past month. And they are now ahead. Yes, that is right. I said ahead of the New York Yankees in the standings. They're in good shape, knock on wood. They've been playing really well. And it feels like they're going to make the playoffs for the first time since 2021 this year. Again, knock on wood, feels like, who knows? We'll see what happens. But even watching meaningful baseball in August is something that was not a guarantee. So by the time this airs, I will have seen them hopefully win in San Diego, but at the very least, I'll have gone to San Diego and seen them play at Petco, and great stadium and great opportunity to see what turns out to be a good team. Sorry, not sorry.
Okay, Dave, wait, but speaking of you going to see baseball teams play, you were actually, and I have the photo evidence here, everyone.
Yes.
And we're going to put it on the screen. But you were actually cheering for a different baseball team, not known as the Boston Red Sox, this past week, and you were on the other side of the world. So what was up with that?
Yeah, it's so the short story is I applied to a program I knew nothing about, as one does, that promised a free trip to Japan. And I figured I'd learn about it at some point later. I didn't really, but then I got there and found out what it was. So I'm a part of the U.S.-Japan Leadership Program, and that brought me to Japan for a fascinating week. I got to write a piece in Time magazine last week about what it was like to meet a Hiroshima survivor and talk to her about the fact that I had actually helped make sure that her story was in President Obama's remarks when he was the first American president to speak in Hiroshima in 2016. It was a crazy experience, one of the craziest things that's happened in my life, and I love Japan. But at the end of that week, I had always dreamed of going to a game in a baseball game in Japan. I just had always heard it was so much fun and so interesting, and I finally got to do it. So yes, one of the other delegates in the program was kind enough to help me navigate a site entirely in Japanese, and it was awesome. So Oryx is the team. It's named after a company because a lot of Japanese teams do that. So it's the Osaka team, but it's named after this company called Oryx, and it's the team that Ichiro started on, and
shout out
some
to him.
great
Into the Hall of Fame.
100% shout out Ichiro, one of the greatest players ever. And also some great Red Sox players, I don't know if Masataka Yoshida is great, but he's a key member of the Red Sox, Masataka Yoshida, Koji Uehara, who helped us win a World Series in 2013. He came from Oryx. So anyway, it was awesome. I just, anybody who has the opportunity, I urge you to try to make it to a game in Japan, because every player gets their own, not like just walk-up music, but their own chants in the whole stadium.
Oh, wow.
There's like a drumming section in the outfield. They lead the entire crowd in cheering for that player, for their specific chant. All the food at all the stalls is so interesting and so different, obviously. But it's like,
wait, do they have sushi? Do they have like sushi at the ballpark?
Yeah, basically it's like they have like takoyaki, which is like these little fried dough balls that have octopus in them. They have like grilled meat skewers. They have different kinds of beers. They have different kinds of highballs, because everybody in Japan's super into highballs. With whiskey and other drinks, and they have like different kinds of things with corn. It was just like, it was so much fun. It lived up. My expectations were super high, Gevin, and it lived up to them. So I hope I'm going to try to release some video of it, because I was just so thrilled to be there. But I'm not the only one who went to a game over the last week, Gevin. Sometimes you're a Braves fan, sometimes you're a Yankees fan, sometimes you're a Falcons fan, but this week I think you went to a Ravens game. So tell us about that.
I did, and let the record reflect, I was wearing my Falcons hat the entire time. Okay, so put some respect on my name. But yes, I did go see the Baltimore Ravens play their preseason home opener against my OG hometown team, the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, again, he's a Falcons fan, he's a Colts fan, he's a...
Okay. But look, okay, so I went with my friend. Get this. We are starting at business school together this fall. And
that's great.
When we met each other, we thought we were meeting each other for the first time. This was a couple years ago. But we found out that we went to preschool together in Indianapolis. You know him, John.
That's crazy. How did you find that out?
So there aren't a ton of people in DC who are from Indiana. So when we sat down for coffee and I asked him where he was from and he mentioned Indiana, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I actually was born in Indiana too. Where? Oh, Indianapolis. Oh, same. Oh, where'd you go to preschool? Sycamore. I went to Sycamore. Wait.
Oh, no way.
So
that's
then
crazy.
I told my mom later that night, and she's like, oh yeah, Eitan, like I have a picture of you guys together when you were like 3 years old. So long story short, Eitan lives in DC now. I'm in DC right now. And so when I saw that the Ravens were going to be opening up their preseason against the Colts in Baltimore, preseason tickets super cheap, right? Like these games don't count for anything. So I was like, bet, like let's go. So we took the train to Baltimore, and it's the preseason, so no Lamar Jackson, no Derrick Henry, at least on the Ravens side of things. But we, of course, got to see one of the hottest, most high-profile quarterback battles playing out in the entire NFL on the Colts side of the ball. Anthony Richardson versus Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. Unfortunately, this battle, at least during the course of the game, lasted all but a few drives before Anthony Richardson exited the game with a hand injury. But fear not, Danny Dimes was at the ready to relieve him. So that was the story of that game. But
Hashtag blessed to get to see that. Really amazing.
Yeah, the last time I was at that game, I was seeing Patrick Mahomes up against Lamar Jackson, and it just evoked flashback.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just two generational players.
Exactly. Right.
Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both on their side of the ball up against whoever it was who was starting for the Ravens, not named Lamar Jackson.
Well, I feel like, speaking of generational talents, that actually, and two people, that actually sets us up well to talk about our guests for this week's episode, because we have not one, but two incredible guests. So who are folks going to be hearing from this week, Gevin?
Yep, that's right, Dave. This week we've got interviews with two former NFL greats, Coach Daron K. Roberts and former NFL legend Chris Carr. So let's get into those interviews. All right. We are so lucky to be joined on this week's episode of Lowlights by my friend, best-selling author, investor, lawyer, and former NFL coach, Daron K. Roberts, or DKR, as he's known online. Daron just released his third book, Microwins, right here on the screen. Get your copy today. I do encourage all of you all to read it. It's phenomenal. And while you're at it, maybe go ahead and buy his two other books too, Call an Audible and a kid's book about empathy. I can say, I'm not even lying, Call an Audible changed my life. It sounds like I'm preaching, but I'm not. It's the truth. And I think a kid's book about empathy apparently changed Oprah's life because she featured it on her famous favorite things list. So that's pretty cool. But Daron, thank you so much for coming on Lowlights. It's as you know, this is a full circle moment for me, thinking back to when you accepted my invitation to speak to our Black men's group at Harvard, your alma mater, back in 2017. I'll make sure we put those pictures up on the screen so they can see young Gevin with the even younger DKR.
I'll take it.
But man, you've been such a positive influence in my life ever since, and it means so much that you came on this podcast. You're truly the perfect guest for Lowlight. So really excited for the conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I didn't realize I was kind of jogging my memory and didn't realize it was 2017. I knew it was everything since 2020 to me is like pre and post COVID.
Yeah, right.
So I knew it was
time doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah. I couldn't locate the year, but man, that's 8 years, and
I double checked in my
been
camera
great to
last
know
night.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Glad to get connected with you, Dave. I'm looking forward to the convo.
Yeah. That's great. Well, all right. Let's start here. Let's start at the start. So, Daron, I think it's pretty clear to people who are watching this and listening to this that you have this incredible combination of being incredibly successful, but also just being a grounded, real person still. And I think that says something about. Often, I think it says something about that person's upbringing. And so I know that, like some of our guests on Lowlights, your journey started in Texas. You were a super talented safety in high school and student body president, and off to UT. So if you could just pinpoint something from that early part of your journey that you think set you on the right path, like what would that be?
Yeah, I'm a fifth generation East Texan, so. I grew up in a family, dad, a Baptist minister. He was also a soil scientist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, mom, an elementary school principal. And so, the sort of the twin goalposts in my family, they were education and religion. So that's sort of my upbringing coming into the world. Somewhere, I remember a couple of things. One, when I was 9, my dad gave me one of those little children's books, like reader, large font books on Thurgood Marshall. And, I read this book and I don't know, you go to law school and people have all sorts of interesting sort of origin stories around how they find the law. I got to the end of that, must have been like a 20-page book. And I said, I want to be a lawyer. And that was crystal clear to me at a young age, right? In the single digits, that's what I wanted to be. My parents were also politically active. So, I was working for my state senator while I was in high school. Was class president all 4 years in high school, student body president. So I'm kind of checking all of these boxes. And for me, senior year, I said, okay, the end goal is to be governor of Texas. And so how do I reverse engineer that? Right? Like, parents took me to Austin. I remember standing in the rotunda, looking up at the portraits of governors and thinking that's what I wanted to do. And so, in my naivety, I reverse engineered that to be University of Texas, get elected student body president, Harvard Law School, practice in Houston for like 3 to 4 years, go back to East Texas, hang a shingle.
You had it all planned out. You had it all planned out.
Had it marked out, right? So that was the plan. And so that's, when I went to University of Texas in 97, I still had my journal entry with the kind of open boxes, and I just started checking them off.
Man, that's wild. I mean, and I think it's just interesting because Gevin and I actually worked for somebody else who was inspired to become a lawyer because of Thurgood Marshall in Vice President Kamala Harris. She had his portrait in her office in the West Wing and his bust in her ceremonial office in the executive office building. Wow. And so as a result, we ended up having to learn and write a lot about Justice Marshall. And yeah, I mean, I agree. He's one of the reasons I think both of us went to law school as well. Those people who can fight for the law, who can fight for people, who can make, big change in places where, sometimes issues can feel hopeless. So,
yeah, I fly quite a bit, and I don't get to do it often, but I love flying in a BWI. And you talked about the bust of Thurgood Marshall, and it's just such a great kind of physical reminder of his impact and legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. What an American hero. Well, all right. So, sticking with your early life, before we get into all the successes since then. So, you had a lot of success at UT. Served at president, I think, of what was at least then the largest student body in the country, I think. And double majored, internships. But when it came time to apply to law school, you mentioned a little bit of that in your background, but I understand that you actually got waitlisted when you first applied to Harvard Law School. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What was going through your head as you were getting let's say the first response that you had been waitlisted, and what made you decide to keep at it and stick with it?
Yeah, that was my earliest, I think, real exposure to rejection. So, I'm looking at my application before this is before you guys are young, but you used to have to sort of print things out and put them in an envelope and put a stamp on them. And so, great GPA, great LSAT score. I'm student body president, largest university in the country, and I'm full of a lot of ego at the point, right? At that point in my life.
Yeah, sure.
You're state capital bound. I mean,
I'm state capital bound. I was working for, this is in 2000, my state senator, so George W. Bush gets elected president. The lieutenant governor in Texas, Rick Perry, goes up to governor. Sure. My state senator gets elected by the Senate to be the lieutenant governor, which, as in a lot of states, is the highest, public official in the state. And so I was working for him. I'm like, this is going to be a breeze. And, you get this letter, and basically the paraphrase is like, "Dear Daron, we like you.
Thank you.
We like you, but we don't like you enough." Right?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you have any other options for law school, you should probably take advantage of them. Right. But, don't call us, we'll call you. And I'd also applied to the Kennedy School,
Right.
So it's like, I'm just like, okay. At the point, I thought my life was over. It's very interesting because,
Yeah.
I think at some point when you're young, you really believe in linear life plans and sort of this kind of chain of causality, if A and B and B and C. And I think that was the first like vivid reminder to me that a lot of what was going to happen in my life was going to be unplanned. So I'd applied to the Kennedy School at the same time, got in there, I deferred, and one of my mentors calls me up 2 weeks after graduation and says, listen, I know you're not going to law school, but so if you'll remember, Jim Jeffords is a senator from Vermont. He switches to independent. The Senate shifts into Democratic control. Every ranking member now becomes a chairman or a chairwoman. And so Joe Lieberman became the chairman of Senate Governmental Affairs Committee and needed to hire like 30 people in a week. And so he's like, look, you got to be in D.C. on Monday. It's a Thursday. I took a Greyhound bus, get to Union Station, and I'm sitting in Dirksen 302 on Monday morning at 8 a.m. And it's June of 01. I don't want to be there. I'm bitter. But you fast forward to September the 10th, I'm working on education bills. September the 12th, myself and everyone else working on national security bills, right? So I get this front row seat into whatever you want to call it, crisis management, public policy, at one of like the most tumultuous times in the history of the country. And that's when I really, I always talk about grow through what you go through. And, it's very hard to get better while you're bitter. And so I was a very bitter 21-year-old for 3 months until I just woke up I remember September 12th thinking, I couldn't replicate this opportunity if I tried. So did that for a year, and then I went to the Kennedy School the following year. Got waitlisted 4 years in a row. I hope that's a record. They won't tell me. And then finally got in 04.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a testament. If at first you don't succeed, try again, man. And
yeah, people always ask me, what changed? I'm like, you do all the things. I did the additional letters of recommendation.
Yeah.
I showed up outside of admissions and got kicked out a couple times. But it was great. It was like a quick trip from DC, took the train up to Boston, get back. But also I think what's interesting too is I think back to, some of the, I always joke that there are two guys that I graduated with in law school who, if I precede them in death, will probably be carrying my casket. Just incredible people that I met and really good friends. And who's to say that would have been the same experience had I entered, HLS in
Sure.
01 or 02 or 03. So
Sure.
Everything happens for a reason. I believe that.
Absolutely.
With all my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, DKR, I want to get to the point in your story where you added NFL coach to your very long byline of amazing accomplishments. But like your story getting into HLS, your story of how you became an NFL coach was anything but ordinary, anything but planned. And there was this point in time, when you were at HLS, I can say as a law student right now, most of your classmates, I'm sure, like many of my classmates, aspire to go off and do things like pursue a judicial clerkship or, work in a U.S. attorney's office or work in a public defender's office. But there was a moment in time where you decided you wanted to do something very different, when that was to be an NFL coach. And to make a long story short, I know that you wrote letters to every single NFL team, head coach and defensive coordinator, and to 50 college football teams. I think it was 164 letters in total before you finally got one yes. And it was from, legendary NFL coach Herm Edwards, who was with the Kansas City Chiefs. at the time. So can you take us back to that process? First of all, I'm curious what your parents were thinking as all of this was transpiring. And then maybe for you, what you learned through that process about what it takes to be successful.
Yeah, I'm going through law school, and so I clerked after my first summer. I think it was Baker Botts, DC. Mm-hmm. And I finished the summer, and my dad, I'm talking to my dad on the phone. It's like, how was it? I'm like, it was okay. He's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, I said, I just don't know if anyone enjoys what they're doing. He's like, what? Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, it just felt like 3 months of people just getting through the day. Yeah. And he's like, oh, you care too much about quality of life. Get over it, right? Like, whatever. So I then, and it's good, right. And I'm from Texas, right? So like, I'm from Texas. So the next year I do the whole Texas split where you split between two firms. Yeah. I do 2 more firms, both in Houston, have the same feeling, but it wasn't acute enough for me that I said, I don't want to practice law. I just thought, okay, I've got to do this thing, pay back some loans and then go on my way. But then a buddy of mine from high school invited me to work this camp at the University of South Carolina. I mean, for 3 days, I was like a kid in a candy shop. I had no clue what the hell I was doing, right? I'm from Texas. So I was like a decent, strong safety in high school. I was a first team all district, which is probably my greatest achievement in life. Hey, it's not too bad. But I never had any notion of like playing any sport past high school. But man, coaching these kids, it's just one of those, I talk about notice what lights you up. And it was one of the rare moments in my life when I didn't have to set my alarm clock to get up. Like I'm up at 5:30. I'm drawing, I'm walking through my drills and setting my cones out. So I fly back into Logan. I call my parents and I was like, I want to be a coach. My dad's like, do you know how much debt you're in? What?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, actually, I do, because Bank of America reminds me every day that as soon as I graduate, I've got like 6 months of freedom before they're going to come hunt me down. But I said, look, this is what I want to do. And they were supportive. I think they probably thought that I was going to get rejected by any coach with any sense and probably end up practicing. But man, when Herm gave me the opportunity to work at a training camp, is like below the org chart. Like there isn't really a place, it's like head coach on down. It's like on the back of the org chart somewhere with an asterisk was Daron. But it was the time of my life, man. And like you said, I mean, I'm in David Wilkins' professional responsibility class, my 3L year. And he's like, we're going to go around the room and people tell us where you're going. And like the first off the bat, this girl's like, I'm clerking for Scalia. I'm like, oh shit, this isn't going to do it.
Yeah, right.
And they keep going around. I said, I'm going to be a training camp intern for the Kansas City Chiefs. Gevin,
I would have been like, whoa.
Everyone looked at me. Yeah. I remember the girl to my left. She's like, what does that mean? And I said, well, there are 32 NFL teams and I'm going to be interning for one of them. She's like in the legal counsel office. I'm like, no, I'm going to be coaching.
like on the field.
And, so that was it. So, I graduate in June and I drive my, beat up Tahoe from Cambridge to Kansas City. And that's how I got started, man.
Well, Daron, I mean, I think when most people hear you're an NFL coach, they have this image in their head of, you're on the sidelines for games or even just for training camp. You're there with the players. You're there with Herm Edwards. Maybe you're in the back of some of the, the paparazzi photos. Living large, like you made it, right? You achieved your dreams. But what I remember about your story was that you actually slept in Arrowhead Stadium. I don't remember for how long, but I remember you would sleep in Arrowhead Stadium, which for those who don't know is where the Chiefs play. because, for one, I don't think you were getting paid that first season. And two, you alluded to this a second ago, you wanted to be up and at work before anyone else. So take us back to those nights. What were they like? And I guess, what do you say to young people today who might feel that they're shortcuts or they're substitutes for hard work?
Yeah, it was a surreal experience because, one of my best friends went to Wachtell, which, for folks on the podcast.
That's where I was this summer.
That's where you were this summer. Okay, so, this is like white shoe law firm, New York. And he's calling me from he just finished a meal at Preseason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's like, how are things going? And literally, for me, I wasn't getting paid. But I also understood that, 32 teams, you have around 14 paid coaches per team. It is as close of a network as there is, right? And my thing was, man, I begged Herm to let me stay on after training camp. He finally said yes. And he said, listen, man, you're just going to be the guy that when we need something, he's like, don't turn your phone off. So, taking people to the airport, picking them up, picking up barbecue, practice, putting dummies out for drills, anything I was basically doing anything that I could to add value. And I think it was also an humbling experience for me in that no one cared that I had 2 degrees from Harvard. It actually worked in the opposite where it worked against me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely zero currency there. And all they wanted to know was how are you adding value today? What are you? And every day I would go to every coach in the morning and ask, hey, is there any kind of project that I could work on? And then at one point, the defensive coordinator, Gunther Cunningham, gives me a project, and that led to another one. And so, that's how I ended up getting a contract at the end of the year. But it was tough. I also slept at Arrowhead, to be honest with you, because I didn't have health insurance. So I'm like, hey, I need to be as close as I can to the team doctors in case anything goes down. So a lot of it was just out of necessity as well.
That's just so funny.
Oh, man.
Well, things did trend upward for you after that first year of being an unpaid intern. You went on to coach for the Detroit Lions, for the West Virginia Mountaineers, the college level. You coached then again in the NFL for the Browns. But you tell this story, Daron, in Call an Audible, of why you ultimately stepped away from coaching. You were at home, my understanding was, during the off season, and you were eating breakfast with your son. And by the way, for those who are listening, DKR is the father to 5 children, which is a beautiful thing. But your son commented to you right then and there when y'all were eating breakfast together that he had never seen you eat breakfast before. And you tell this story as, being one of the lowest points of your life. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why that comment of your son telling you, wow, I've never seen daddy eat breakfast, why that comment had such a profound impact on you that it did.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, I'm a full-time coach. We're in Cleveland. We all sign a 3-year deal. It's the first year. Jimmy Haslam, the owner, decides he's just going to can us all at the end of the year. Surprise. So I go home. And my son, I'm scrambling eggs, and he's like, you eat breakfast? He's like 4.
Right.
And I didn't really receive the translation, right? I asked my wife, what's he talking about?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, when was the last time you had breakfast with Dylan?
Right.
And I realized even as a full-time coach, I was still sleeping at the office 3 nights a week. The irony hit me, I was coaching everyone else's son but my own.
Mercy.
I just had to stop and say, I think one of the other things I thought was that, on the rare occasion when we did win in Cleveland.
Some things haven't changed.
Yeah. Right? The euphoria lasted for 12 hours, and then you were just back to the grind. right? Like there was a very short shelf life on this sense of accomplishment. And we're going into football season, but man, I mean, you see this finished product on Saturdays and Sundays. For folks who haven't been in that world, you can imagine what a Monday through Friday looks like for players as well, but especially for coaches. So it was an easy decision for me to say, hey, look, let me just take some time off, go to Austin, figure some things out. That's how I end up at the University of Texas. You know, I'm teaching courses in leadership, sports management, started a Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation with a gift from Kevin Durant, where we were teaching athletes, you know, leadership principles and financial management principles, which this is all pre-NIL, right? And it was another way, and I think that for a lot of listeners too, I think oftentimes we think, again, in a very linear fashion in terms of we don't stop to think through how else can my skill set translate into a need, right? And I think the best parts of life come from like just this thought process of, okay, I'm doing this thing. There are parts of it that I like. Where else may this fit? And I can add value in a way that maybe I haven't imagined before. And so for me, I spent 8 years at UT doing that. And, it was fun, man. It was fun.
Yeah. And I know Dave has a question on that, but before we get to that, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Microwins, your new book. Your new book.
Hey man, I appreciate it. Listen, you know, you said I have 5 kids, so you know that $2.12 royalty, man, that goes straight to the 529.
Right.
Right. So
I love that.
I appreciate it.
Of course. And I do encourage everyone to buy it. But look, the premise is fascinating. You know, it's the book is called Microwins again. But here you are, Daron, you set these huge goals for yourself and you achieved so many of them. But you say, as is written on the cover, you say the secret is to go small. So I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what you mean by that and maybe target your response to the young men who might be listening to this podcast who are really trying to reach. What do you say to young men who are setting goals for themselves? How do you think Microwins could help them achieve their goals and achieve their dreams?
Yeah, I think we're in a very, you know, I would describe it as a listicle age, right? Where it's like, you know, the 10 ways, the 10 steps to do X. Yeah, and you do these 10 things. And the 7 ways. Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. And I found, so take, for example, when I said I want to be an NFL coach, I want to be a football coach, I had to backtrack and say, it was too overwhelming to figure out how to break in. What I had to say was, okay, there are 32 teams. I'm going to build a spreadsheet. And look, I'm a liberal arts guy. I also recognize that I've been the most effective when I've converted my dreams from Microsoft Word to Excel, right?
That's such a good way of putting it.
Like that's where it gets done. So I said, okay, we have 2 conferences and 4 divisions in each. Let's go to each webpage. Let's find the mailing address. Today, I'm just going to do the AFC North. And I'm going to have a column for team. I'm going to have a column for mailing address. I'm going to go through the list of coaches. And I'm going to see if, obviously, the OC, DC, and the head coach, but then if there's any coach that has a Texas connection, I'm also going to send a letter to them. And I just went through that process day by day, populated the spreadsheet. And then I said, okay, on Monday, that's my AFC North day. And I'm going to send these letters out and go. And I think oftentimes, like I think about this around New Year's resolutions where I think February the 2nd is like the date when 80% of resolutions are either forgotten or broken. I think we fall so in love with like the imagined finished product that we don't stop to say, okay, I want a 6-pack by June. 2 minutes of planks today. If I can do 2 minutes of planks today, not 12 hours, not like every paleo Daniel fast, just like, let me just start with like 30 seconds of planks and let me try to stack those. And so I just found that what helps to build momentum for really big, scary goals is converting that goal into these manageable daily wins and celebrating like hell when you hit them and keep going to the next day. And eventually you look up and you're like, oh wow, like I've made some progress. So I'm glad, I've been really, it's been rewarding to hear people who've read the book and who've used like the system, because I have 3 categories: work, family, and health. And every day you have a micro win in each. Um, I've had some just great feedback from people saying, I have a better relationship with my son because I set a micro win of playing a game of horse after work. And that just kind of builds. So,
I love that.
Thanks a ton,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love that too. And I think like one of the things for the young men who are listening to this is like, remember, like, Daron's writing those letters before ChatGPT. Like, it's not like he could just say like, ChatGPT, write me
Build a
50
spreadsheet.
or 160
Find me the contact
individual
info.
letters,
Yeah.
right? To the, like, you had to go in there and you had to actually change the address and actually lick the envelope or whatever, send the email or do whatever it was that you had to do. And I think it's just, it's such a testament to perseverance. And so I guess I just, I'm wondering, like, that center that you created to help young athletes in particular see how to build their journey into leadership. I think, one of the reasons that Gevin and I are doing this is because we feel like often, I think a lot of young men have trouble seeing the rungs in that ladder and feeling like, how am I ever going to be a success? How am I ever going to get from where I am to where I want to go? And so, I'm just wondering if you have messages to those young guys, people who feel like that they might have tried a couple times, it didn't work out, and they just feel like at this point, it's not even worth it. Nobody's going to notice them. There is no way of getting up that ladder, and they're just stuck.
Yeah, young men, listen, I have 3 sons, 2 girls, 3 boys. The boys range from 15 to 8. And the one thing I want to say is, like, even the language we use around, like, for example, the ladder, I think, young men really ask yourself why you want the thing that you want. Like, I always go through I call it the 5 whys. Like, if I think I'm certain about something and I really want to unpack whether or not it's something I want versus what my parents or my cohort thinks I should be wanting, I kind of unpack, but why is that? Why is that? Why is that? So I think a lot of young men have to really stop. And the problem, one of the main obstacles is that we've got this device in our pocket that if you want to ever feel as if you're behind, just take, 5 minutes on any social media platform and keep scrolling. And you're going to walk away thinking that there is no way that you can be like insert name here. So one of the things I think for young men, I know this is hard, but I think it's necessary. So much clarity comes from divorcing yourself away from your phone. Like that's the only way I know how to put it. Like having very strict parameters around what you're feeding your brain. It's hard. It's hard. Like I do. It's so hard. Like I do what's called a cell phone Shabbat from Friday sundown. It started Friday sundown, right? Like sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. And then I extended it to Sunday where I don't use my phone. But man, there's so much clarity. I ask people like, when's the last time you just looked out of a window and just thought, right? Without a device, like just turn things over here. I think because I'm a writer, I really, there's a big difference between loneliness and solitude. And I think for young men, a lot of times we confuse I'm alone with my thoughts with I'm lonely. And what I can say is, man, the more time you can spend with yourself, absent interference, guidance, strategies, tips from other people, I think you just quiet the background noise enough to start hearing what is really intrinsic to you. I think that's where it starts. We are, and it's really frightening because if you think about it, I mean, my God, I'm coming out of high school. It's sort of like the ramp up to the internet. Well, but man, I just told my like we were watching TV and there were some ads, and I said, man, count the number of times in a day that someone is trying to sell you something, right? Like I had a mentor, I have a mentor who always says, everything's a funnel. Like people are trying to get to you into some sales funnel, whether it's for a product or a service or an idea at every turn. And I think it just begins with the more time, it could be 5 minutes, where you just kind of sit and just think through I really think that's the starting point, because I don't think we as men, especially young men, can really gain clarity until we quiet the background chatter enough. Some things are going to be frightening, but I think the frightening stuff, like all of that, is a gateway to really being true to yourself. And I taught 2,300 students while I was at the University of Texas. Guys, I can't tell you how many students sat in my office and said, my parents sent me here to be an electrical engineer. All I want to do is some form of art. How do I get out of this? Right? So these decisions are really tough, but I mean, in this age that we live in, like, it's going to require some bold people. And if not you, then whom, right? Like that's my thing, right? It's like, I also want to say to young man, like, you're the only person you're guaranteed to die with is yourself. Like, these circles will come and go. You're in high school and you think, man, these folks are like, I remember like being in high school and thinking, I'm dressing so I can please other people. I'm saying things. So, and now I don't really talk. I talk to 3 of my high school classmates, right? And it kind of just continues. So don't really, I think, don't overvalue your current cohort in terms of being acceptable to them. Like, you're the only person who's going to finish this journey. So be as true to yourself as possible.
Yeah. I mean, so much of what you said resonated with me. Like, I mean, first of all, I'm Jewish. So like the cell phone Shabbat, I think that is I have told a lot of people that I think that there is there's, especially these days, there's such a magic to just staying off your phone and not like watching TV and just spending Saturday, just walking around outside with your family, just doing anything else and engaging with the world. But also, I think it's funny that you say this about, these moments where you just look out the window, because so many people say like, oh, I do my best thinking in the shower sometimes. I wonder why that is. And my answer is like, well, there's no magic about water hitting you, I don't think.
No.
But you don't have your phone with you in the shower, and you're not, you're like, that's sometimes people's only chance to think at this point is when they're alone. It's when they have nothing to do and they're like, oh, now I'm thinking about something else. So, I mean, it's just, I think that's so important. Whatever people, at whatever age, whatever stage of life you're in, wherever your life is headed, I think that advice is just so important and so helpful.
I appreciate that both of you are orienting this towards young men. I think about them a lot, raising them, being around them, coaching them. And I just love this counter narrative that you're building, because everything else is, weights and diet and protein shakes and, optimizing sleep. We're just like this optimizing age that I think with the work that you guys are doing, like, we need to get back to the basics of like, how can I discover who I am and then be okay with that?
Yeah.
It's important work, man, so I appreciate it.
That's such a simple and powerful idea, and it is so hard. To your point. But I think it is one of the things that will help us get to a better place than we are in right now. And I just, I again, look, I mean, it's clear that we could talk to you about this stuff, for a long time because you have so much to say about it and your thoughts are so important. But unfortunately we can't do that. So we have to be respectful of your time. So what we will do instead is just, ask a few lightning round questions, before we let you go, about some areas that some young men can relate to. So, first one, favorite sports, can be football, doesn't have to be, favorite sports movie or TV show.
It's gonna sound so cliche, but
Remember the
I love me some Denzel and Remember the Titans.
All right.
I'm sure some of your other guests have said this, but and I intentionally did not listen to that last segment because I
like
wanted to kind of be
5 or
fresh.
6? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's just it's cheesy and impactful at the same time. So
Yeah.
sign me up.
Look, the left side is the strong side. We all know
Yes.
that. There's that's a classic. It's a classic. All right. What about music? What's the music that you flip on? Maybe on vinyl.
One of
cheer you up.
your many runs that you go on.
Right.
Yes.
Progress on
To cheer you up when you're down,
Yeah.
or just keep you going.
Man, listen, I know there's the age-old Biggie versus Tupac debate.
Mm-hmm.
Since the age of 12, I've been firmly in the Tupac camp.
Oh,
And,
okay, West Coast.
Yes, man. And his Me Against the World album, that's just one of those, you can hit shuffle and never go back to the device, right? Like you just let it go. So that would definitely be the one.
All right. Good answer. Okay. Next, comfort food. When somebody says to you, comfort food, what comes to mind?
Okay. I'm from the South.
Closing his eyes, he's thinking, he's
Yeah.
So many good ones. Being from the South, man, I'm just gonna give you a meal. Okay. Like, let's just say.
Okay. Yeah. Hit it. Yeah.
Go ahead. Fix the plate for us.
I'm gonna go, I don't do this often, but I'm gonna go fried chicken.
Okay.
Mashed potatoes with gravy.
Mm.
I'm gonna go some mac and cheese.
Yeah, classic.
And because I'm just decadent in this way, I'm gonna throw some biscuits in there.
Oh my goodness. You are from Texas.
Look, I can't do that now. My cardiologist would I'm sure.
Yeah,
when
right.
she listens to this, she's gonna give me a call and say, "This is not what we talked about in the last meeting. This was not the plan." So, but yes,
Like you to up that Crestor dose.
yeah.
Not all the time. It's like Cookie Monster learned to start singing "Cookies are a sometime food."
Yes.
It's like it's not every day, but yeah, exactly right. Okay, and last lightning round question: Arch Manning and the Longhorns, how are they going to do this year?
Oh man. Not to date what we're when we're talking, but the coaches poll just came out for the first time. We're number 1 preseason, which scares the hell out of me, to be quite honest.
Like a true Longhorns fan,
Right?
Terrified.
I was in Pasadena January the 4th, 2006, and watched the
Rose Bowl.
The Rose Bowl, and watch Vince stretch out over the pylon. So it's been a rough 2 decades for me. But what I will say, man, do I want to commit? Can I commit?
This is your chance.
I'm bullish, man. Listen, we're gonna win it. This is the year.
All right.
You heard it here first.
This is it.
This is the year. Listen, I mean, be ready to call professionals to visit my home if we lose to Ohio State in the opener. Okay. But I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there that we're going to win it this year.
All right. Well, it's on the record now. And
it's on the record.
And for your sake, we're hoping that you'll be a happy man. Well, either way, it was such an honor, such a pleasure to get you to come on. Everybody, make sure that you order Microwins, and then check it out at the library as well for a friend who might not have it yet.
Yes.
But Daron, thank you so much for taking the time. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Listen, thanks again. I mean, Gevin, we had a long relationship, and just appreciate the work that you and Dave are doing. Again, for young men, just keep going. Just keep going. I know there's a lot out there to be negative and down about, but I think messages like this is what helps someone get to the next day. So keep going. Thank you guys for having me.
All right. And we are back with a good friend of the Lowlights podcast, Mr. Chris Carr, who played for a long while in the NFL and has since become an attorney. We talked to Chris earlier on in this first season of Lowlights. And as training camp and preseason for the NFL had come around now, couldn't think of anyone better to have back on the show just for a little bit of story time. Chris, we loved your stories when we had you on earlier on the podcast, and so nice we have to do it twice. So thank you for coming back on and for spending some time with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So nice you can have them twice. I like
exactly. Chris, okay, so I wanna ask you about training camp. So for those out there who don't know, training camp is usually during one of the hottest times of the year. Start up in July when the temperatures are rising, Chris, and it seems like as the temperatures rise, the tensions do too. It's not uncommon to have some skirmishes break out at training camp. But I want to know, is there a particular memory, Chris, that you have from training camp, from your years in the league, that you feel like captures just how absolutely crazy of a time training camp is?
Oh man, I have a lot of stories. I remember being harassed during my rookie year. A lot of the rookies, I didn't have very much hair then. So I didn't have this problem, but I remember, some people had really good hair, very long hair, and people just took the razor and just made just different marks.
Just indiscriminately.
Indiscriminately just went across their heads. And so everyone just showed up the next day looking crazy. But yeah, I remember Warren Sapp getting into a fight with one rookie because the rookie was going a little too hard during one defensive lineman and O-lineman drills. And so that just shows you like the tension, because there's different people have different motives during training camps and different goals, right? If you're a veteran, you're trying to get ready for the season, like if you're established, like, hey, whereas other veterans, they might be still fighting for their spot on the team. Whereas if you're undrafted or you're a later on draft pick, you're really trying to show that you belong. So you have attention of people going too hard, people not going hard enough. And then it's hot. You haven't seen your family. You're around everyone every second and every day. And so it's a conducive environment for conflict.
You obviously spent a number of years in the league. Did your training camp experience feel meaningfully different the longer you'd been in the league?
I would say yes. I say yes. I mean, because afterwards I was undrafted. And so my thing was like, I have to perform very well every single day. Like I told you last time, my good days have to be great days, right? And so going into my second training camp, it was more of like, well, I have established myself in a sense that I made the roster. I played a whole season, all 16 games with the team. But there was still that notion, because I wasn't the starter, I wasn't a Pro Bowler going into it, that I had to prove myself. And so I always felt like there's always had that pressure. But there's just different pressures. So like my rookie training camp, I needed to make the team. My sixth training camp with the Baltimore Ravens, my 6th year, that was like, I'm going to go into the season as a starter. This is my job to lose type of thing. And so I really wanted to solidify my spot at that point. Then going into 2013, I knew I was in a precarious position because I was an older veteran, et cetera. And I really wanted to leave my mark, like, hey, I want to show that I can still do this. So I think those 3 particular training camps really stick out. But all of them, you have the heat, you have the conflict. And then you also have a guy like me that spends all off season trying to maintain trying to get as big as possible. And then we're outside running around in humidity
for 4 hours a day and lifting weights in the morning, occasionally. So it was a war of attrition for me, both mentally and physically.
And you actually mentioned to me before we started recording, Chris, that you went out to see the Ravens just this past week or 2 weeks ago. What was that like? Did it bring back a rush of emotions from when you were on the field, like the players you saw were that day?
One thing that I thought was cool is that they had an undrafted cornerback. They said that every day had been making plays. He was like phenomenal, and he had just had an interception on the field, and so that was good to see. You know, whenever anyone has been in that position, it's like obviously I'm going to know what that person is going through and very proud of that person if they have success, right? So that was cool. Seeing a lot of the Ravens have been so successful over the past 2 decades that more or less everyone still is there, right? So people that worked in the building, people that worked in marketing, etc. Coach Harbaugh's still there, so it was good to see all of them. It's a lot different from when I played. Now there's more protections. Nobody was in pads. There's no hitting. Whereas I was playing, it was like you're going to be in pads the majority of the time. But the Ravens, Coach Harbaugh, when I was there, if you had 5 years or more in the NFL, you had every third day off. And so Harbaugh was smart when it came to that aspect of really trying to protect people's bodies. So it was just, it was a great time, and my kids love the Ravens, and so it was great for them to see all those players.
I love that. They must be so proud of you, especially when they, they get to tell their friends the next day. Oh, their friends asking, "Oh, what'd you do yesterday?" "Oh, I went to a Ravens practice." "How'd you get to do that?" "Oh, my dad used to play for the team." Oh, that's awesome. All right, Chris, so let's talk a little bit about the preseason. Preseason action's already in full swing. We had the Hall of Fame game, which I don't know if anyone actually watches, but, that happened. We had a full weekend of preseason football. I told you before we started recording that I was at the Ravens preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. I think for a lot of fans watching the preseason, it's pretty low stakes because in many cases, the starters aren't actually out there playing, or if they are, they're not out there for more than a drive or two. But it's anything but low stakes for the players, especially to your point a second ago for the younger players, because this is really the time when they're trying to solidify that spot for themselves on that roster before the season gets started. So can you talk to us a little bit about the preseason, what it's like to go through it? Do you remember, were you actually even able to enjoy and appreciate the fact that you were playing in the NFL, given just how stressful and pressure-filled it must have been?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the newer players first, the rookies and the people who are trying to make the team. Um, I think a lot of people don't know, like, I think the roster is 53-man roster, but training camp, you're going to start with at least 90 people on the team. So obviously 40 people are going to get cut. That's a given from the start, right? And so you're going to have at least 40 people, and probably I would say 50 to 60 people on the team that feel like their spot is not solidified. Because you can have someone that goes into the season like, hey, I was a backup last year, I played very well, etc. But if some rookie comes in and they just play phenomenally and you don't have the best training camp, or you have a little injury here and there, they might say, hey, I'd rather have this guy keep this guy. We didn't expect to play well and pay him less than keep you, and we're going to cut you, right? And so the games are very important because a lot of times the most important is practice. You have to play consistently well to make the team, but there's also an aspect where there's a viewpoint where it's like, well, he's played well in practice. Let's see how he plays under the lights. Right? And so it's like the game is like the last step to see, like, okay, we've seen these flashes. We are confident. We think this player can play, but he has to show me actually on the field, right? And so there's that actual element of pressure because they want to fulfill what everyone's thinking, like your destiny. You have to fulfill your and actually play well in the game. But for a lot of the players that have been playing consistently well, it is a very good environment that you'll have the veteran guys like rooting for you, right? A lot of guys rooting for me, like, hey, you've been playing well. I hope you play well this game, right? And you do go into the game with more confidence because you've been playing well during the practices, right? But there is that extra element of pressure because if you don't play well and you might only get a quarter, then it's like tough, right? And the other aspect is that even if you have a good training camp or it's just okay, you still want to play well, even if you don't make the team, because you might not make the team, there's other teams that are watching, right? And so if you have good film and you're released, and it's like, oh, well, he didn't make that team, but it didn't look like it was because of his play. Maybe it was just the numbers because based on this film, he just had this 83-yard punt return, right? Like the Ravens player, right? And so that's that aspect of it. For the veteran players, a lot of times you're trying to establish that timing, right? Because sometimes it takes a while to get back in the football mode, right? So if you're a cornerback and you're playing man to man, you might be backpedaling too fast based off the speed. You just haven't been out there in the live environment in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might be backpedaling too slow at the start of the ball, right? You might be
Sleepers are getting
turning.
faster and faster.
Yeah, you might turn open your hips too soon where you should just be staying straight in your back pedal and breaking downhill on a hitch route or whatever it might be. So it is good in the offense too when it comes to making adjustments, making audibles on the field, quarterbacks and the receivers trying to get that, trying to be in unison, on sync, on the same page going into the season. But at the same time, you don't get hurt. Right?
I was going to say, to me, that's the most devastating thing is when
Yeah.
I'm seeing, I mean, Anthony Richardson, for example, quarterback for the Colts, got hurt during the game I was at. There was the Lions player this weekend who had a terrible injury playing my Falcons, where he has to be taken out on in an ambulance to the hospital. I heard he's all good. He's okay, has movement, in the extremities, all of that. But that's just absolutely heartbreaking to see before the season has even gotten started.
Yeah, I mean it's a danger, and unfortunately, when you go to play, you can't play timidly, right? Because if you're timid out there in the football field, most likely you are going to get injured, right?
Yeah.
But there are some things you could probably do, right? If a running back is going down and there's a pile and he's clearly going down to the ground, it's probably not the most intelligent thing for you to do as to jump in and try to make sure he's down. Maybe in the regular season you do that, or playoffs you do that, right? But during the preseason game, if you're a veteran player, you might not do that, right?
Yeah.
But most likely it's just being prepared going into training camp, right? Making sure that you're trying to take care of your body throughout training camp, and the coach is limiting your time on the field so that you reduce the likelihood of you getting injured during the game.
Right. Well, Chris, our time is coming to an end. I do want to ask you, I won't hold you to anything, but any hopes or expectations for, let's say, the Ravens this year, even at a high level? What are you hoping to see out of the team?
Yeah, it's I want the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I love them. That was my favorite place to play. The place treated me the most fair. My best memories there. My kids love the Ravens, so they need to win the Super Bowl. Second, it's funny because a lot of Ravens players or Ravens fans wouldn't like me saying this. I hope the Steelers play well this year.
Okay, say more.
Yeah, I mean, not when they play the Ravens.
Of course not.
But at least, I don't want them to win the division, but I want them to play well because Jared Alexander is one of my best friends. He's back coach for them. Right. Yeah. And I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. I don't know him, but I do like to see not elderly, but older athletes when they're doubted, still showing that they can still have it. Because I think when someone has achieved greatness, I think you can never count them out. And there's a lot of times in Roger Federer's career where people doubted him that he can win another major, and he did.
Yeah,
right?
Serena Williams too.
Yeah, Serena Williams too. And so when I just don't like the lack of respect sometimes when someone has achieved the level of what he's done. I mean, it's been incredible, his career, and someone with that knowledge base and that skill base, even though he might not be the player he once was, you can never count them out. And so if the Steelers end up having a good year and Aaron Rodgers has a good year, I think that would be great for the NFL. But I just hopefully it's not at the expense of the Ravens, because I definitely want the Ravens to win the Super Bowl.
Well, you heard it here first. Chris Carr pulling for the Steelers to do well this season. Just kidding. I do hope Aaron Rodgers has a good season. You're right. At least one more good year out of him.
Yeah. But if they don't, I mean, we'll see. I won't be crying if they don't play. There'll be benefits of it. But, Gerald, like I said, when the day I was signed as an undrafted free agent, I was at Jared Alexander's house on his couch
Yeah, I
watching
remember you
the
telling
draft.
us this.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, him and his family, and so I would love for maybe the secondary, have the secondary,
Right. Just the secondary.
have the
Like
Steelers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming back on Lowlights. Like I said, you're a dear friend of this show. We appreciate you. Wishing you all the best and wishing all the best to your Ravens and to the Steelers secondary.
Yes. Sounds good. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
Chris.
Thank you.
All right. As promised, 2 amazing interviews this week with DKR and with Chris Carr. That rhymes, DKR, Chris Carr. But just wanted to hop on to say thank you for listening. As always, please, please, please like, share, subscribe, and send us an email at lowlightspodcast@valormedianetwork.com. We want to hear from you. As always, thank you, thank you, thank you, and we'll see you back here next week.